All right, it's 1:30. We've got a quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Next item on the agenda is to receive the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes of April 17th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ordinarily, I would abstain on this because I wasn't here, but the minutes accurately reflect the fact I wasn't here, and I don't want to move this to the next docket. So now, cast your votes. Okay, accepted, received. Continuance request, Cindy?
So we have two items. Item number 18, case number 15888 is going to be deferred till May 15th, 2025. And item number 19 is an appeal, case number 15688 is deferred till August 7th, 2025. And then we have a new request for item number 5 just to be moved to the end of the docket.
Okay, I can move number 5 to the end. Do we have a motion on continuing the other two items?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the continuance request as read.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. All right, those two are deferred. Is there anyone here who needs to request a continuance on their matter? Okay, I don't have any. No consent docket. Cindy, would you call the first one, please?
So we have item number 1, case number 15853 is a request of Victor Ortega on behalf of Tammy Blake and Jim Calhoun for a variance to the accessory building regulations, the side yard setback, located at 9401 Northeast 141st Street.
Okay, Mr. Ortega? Give us your name and address and tell us about your application.
Yes, sir. Victor Ortega, and I live at 11417 Roxborough Avenue, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73162. And I am here to continue with the application for Miss Tammy Blake and Jim Calhoun for the ability to erect an accessory building behind their home. And we were asking to modify the distance from the property line to be 16 feet away versus 25, which is what the code asks for. I was asked to submit a letter from the neighbor that lives to the west side of their property, and also a letter document from the HOA from their community, and those two were turned in for review. Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay.
No, with none, we've received both those documents. I read through them, and the neighbors agree, the HOA agrees, so I have no problem with that. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15853 as it meets the statutory requirement for the variance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 2, case number 15900 is a request of Landmark Fine Homes on behalf of Landmark True Investments LLC for a variance to sign regulations located at 11900 Thomas Trail.
Landmark?
Hello, my name is Kayla Copeland. I'm with Copeland Design Collective at 629 West Main Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Landmark is my client, and we are here today to get a variance for our entry sign to the neighborhood. Our location's unique where the right-of-way is actually south the road goes south of our right-of-way, which is Southwest 119th Street. And we are looking to have a little bit taller sign just for visibility to vehiculars driving by and our guests. So we're here for any questions.
And I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, anything from the board?
No, just in looking at it, the proposed sign is 8 foot tall.
Correct.
And I believe the ordinance limits the sign height to 6.
It does.
But it looks as if the sign itself, the wording of the sign is probably within the 6 foot. It's just the art structure of
Correct.
holding the sign up.
Correct.
So I didn't have any problem with it.
No problem. Okay, ready for a motion?
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15900 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for the variance.
Second. Motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item number 3, case number 15903 is a request of Fitzpatrick Properties for a variance to the setback regulations located at 1618 Northeast 16th Terrace.
Anybody here for Fitzpatrick?
Just move it to the back.
Let's move it to the end after number 5.
Item number 4, case number 15912 is a request of 485 Fall Creek LLC, Beaverdale Investments LLC, RSH Investments LLC, Oakdale Holdings LLC, D&G Real Estate LLC, Grandview Holdings LLC, and Scout Investments LLC for a variance to parking regulations in the R1 district located at 1100 South Council Road.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Griffith, and I don't represent any of those people. I actually represent Roadside Retreat Oklahoma OKC LLC, and we're under contract with those entities to acquire that 10-acre tract over there on along the North Canadian River off of Council Road. The plan for this development is industrial offsite storage. If you're not familiar, which I wasn't, industrial offsite storage is it's a relatively new business model providing a logistics solution to companies facing supply chain issues around the country. In essence, logistics managers are trying to consolidate their logistic footprint so that they have shorter routes for the acquisition of materials and also for the delivery of finished goods. As you can see from your agenda packet, the subject property is currently zoned I-2 light industrial, and the closest applicable use classification appears to be the 8300.21, which is the automotive equipment storage. And as you know, the section 100520 requires paving, and with some exceptions in subsection D, because this business model is so new around the country, most zoning codes haven't quite caught up to what they're doing here. And several of the exceptions are similar to the use that we're contemplating, but they don't exactly take it in. As a result, we're asking for a variance from the paving requirements so that the facility can be graveled rather than to be required to be paved. This variance is critical. The business model is not economically feasible if they have to pave the lot. And therefore, the project would not go forward, unfortunately, if we're not able to get a variance on this. Regarding the statutory requirements, we believe that the application of the general paving requirements would create an unnecessary hardship in that it's not economically feasible for this developer to put this project in under those circumstances. And also, they're not necessary for the development of this project. Because paving is not required for the intended use. The conditions are peculiar to this tract because of its location next to the river, which makes it somewhat less desirable from a development perspective, and also which is why the use makes sense if we're able to acquire the property. There'd be no detriment to the public because other than Amazon, just to the south, everything around it is unpaved. Mostly gravel, some dirt lots, but we believe that this development will be it'll be within the same use classification but slightly at the higher level in terms of aesthetic value. We don't believe that the granting of this variance will impair the intent of the paving ordinance because iOS isn't exactly addressed in the paving ordinance, and we think if upon further review under the comprehensive plan, there may be some changes that would probably take this in anyway. We don't think that we would impair the ordinance with this variance. Also, the comprehensive plan is highly supports this idea because it promotes the private investment towards the use of underutilized tracks. Finally, we believe the requested variance is the minimum action required. We already have our driveway access right away. This is all that's left in terms of what's required in order to go forward on this contract. I think in summary, I'd just like to point out that several sections of the comprehensive plan focus on infill projects in underutilized areas. That is this project. This is out of state capital coming into Oklahoma to try to develop a track that has been underutilized for quite a period of time. We respectfully ask for your approval and be happy to answer any questions.
There's nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, board.
So just a couple of questions for you first. The variance from the paving, would that be a variance from all paving? So your approach paving, everything?
Not the driveway part of it. The driveway, in other words, the approach coming off of Council Road, that would be paved. But the interior parking lot area is what would be gravelled.
Okay. And in our packet, it says that the land currently is zoned I2, R1 in the SRO.
I saw that in the packet. The only zoning classification I've seen and the only zoning that we discussed with staff was the I2. I recognize that to the north, we've got some, I think the, what is it, the ROS, the river, the scenic river.
Overlay.
And then we've got some residential to the east, but everything, this tract, even here is identified as I2 in our list. I wasn't sure why they identified, there's no residential in this, other than back to the east, there's no residential. I mean, the Amazon plant is just to the south of this and then the river on the north side.
Yeah,
And
it
so-
should be I2 moderate industrial on the map, but it does abut the R1, so that may be.
It does abut it, if I didn't mean to mislead, yes, but this tract itself is I2.
Sorry, I think I need to address that. Sarah Welch, subdivision and zoning manager. When we were finalizing the report, we double-checked that because I think what's happened is the river at some point was zoned R1. So in this subject area, which is the black box, the southern piece of it is zoned I2 moderate industrial, and I did see in the applicant's submittal that they didn't anticipate any zoning issues. But the north piece of that and the part that's really mostly in the floodway and or floodplain is zoned R1. And then on our map, the green line is the scenic river overlay. That is not a design district. But those three zoning districts combine to make up that subject site.
And so-
Before the board today this is not a zoning application. This is simply, it's a very specific request, and that is to vary the paving requirement for this site. I don't even believe you're tying it to a specific use at this point. We haven't seen a building permit that would establish the actual use. So you would be, with approval, you'd be varying the paving requirement.
Okay. Can I ask if this is going to become a zoning issue?
I think it would only be a zoning issue if they're using any of that R1 property for a use that's not allowed in R1. The R1 is within a floodway or floodplain. If they're not going to modify that and they're not going to encroach into the R1, I don't think they'll have a problem.
We will not, the development does not encroach into the R1 to address that question specifically.
So the hard line that goes through the middle of the property. Is that the overlay?
I'm going to show on the map here, my hand on here, this is the R1 line. See that? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then this green
Is the overlay?
north of it is this SRO. Sorry that our zoning is confusing and hard to show, but so they're mostly they're mostly I2, and the R1 is mostly going to be your flood plain, your flood way. That wouldn't even be modified, and then if they do modify the 100-year floodplain, they have to go through the city and potentially FEMA if you're going to modify that, right? So we don't know if you'll have an issue with zoning or not. We, in the staff report, just wanted to note that because the materials provided to us seem to indicate that, that you'd done your research and you understood that it was all I2.
I had and did understand that. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
But I just want to clarify, the variance that we're being asked to make today would apply to the entire site, which does include R1, I2,
Yes, if you
and
approve
SRO.
this variance, you're approving a variance to the paving regulations. And when we are reviewing this, we're saying that the chapter that you're reviewing is not, it's not tied to the R1 district or the I2 district. So you are modifying Article 10 of the zoning code, not related to the use of the property.
Okay, then that's understood. And for me, I just have a question on the unnecessary hardship, and basically you're just saying that it would be too expensive to do it according to the current zoning and ordinance.
It would be too expensive to pave the property, given where it is and given its proximity to the river, in order to do this particular facility.
And I would think storing industrial materials, whether they're trucks or over-the-road trucks or whatever, right next to a river and a lake would mean that you would want hard surface so you could catch the runoff.
The developers have told me that the only way that this project goes forward for them in terms of the finances is that, and they have engaged an engineer to consult with them about the development, and they're told that gravel is the way to go.
So is the basis of the hardship just economic?
No, well, it's economic, but it's driven, the economics are driven by the location of the property and its proximity to the river, and right there in the turnoff off of Council. It makes it economically unfeasible because of its proximity to the river, and because what would be required to concrete that and maintain that concrete over time. So they're a combined issue, but in general, the hardship relates to the cost of putting the project in. Yes, sir.
And I guess that's the part that I'm having a hard time understanding, because I've in the past been critical over the economic hardship being, or excuse me, the hardship being just economic alone. Now, as it is a factor of another issue, that makes more sense to me, but I'm failing to see what are the site-specific characteristics that would make it more costly to pave this simply by having the river there.
Well, I think that it has to do with being able to comply with the SRO requirements in terms of the setback off of that, and then what would be required in terms of the concrete construction near that river, which is more complicated and more complex than just pouring out in a level in other parts of this, but on another level lot that's not located near the river or the water.
So it's not any difference in the makeup of the concrete. We're not talking about changing additives or the PSI. We're just talking about a topographic issue.
Well, I can't speak directly to the technical requirements of what's required, but I am told and feel convinced that it's the engineering of a concrete drive along that makes it along the river, makes it more complicated and more expensive because of where it's located. I don't know what the factors are in terms of the additives to the contract or the additional support or steel in the concrete. I don't know what those particular factors are.
And again, those would go back to the additional costs. And so that's why I'd be a no on the unnecessary hardship. I'm a no on the particular piece of property, and why? Because it's close to the river. And then again, I'd be a no on the public good and impair the purpose and intent because of the river being that close and a lake being that close.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part in terms of you'd be a no on which respect?
On the fact that the river being that close to it and a lake being that close to it and not being hard surface.
Oh, I follow you.
So what I think today, and again, there's 2 members missing, and so you could take a deferral and try to relitigate it, or I'm gonna have to vote no today.
I apologize, I forgot to mention at the beginning, it takes 3 votes to do anything. So today, you got to have 100% of the 3 of us.
Understood. Thank you, Mr.
So
Chairman.
if you would like to take a continuance,
I would.
okay.
Is there a date for the next one?
Yes.
Every other Tuesday, Thursday.
I believe it's June the 5th. Oh, I'm sorry, May 15th.
May 15th?
I'm sorry?
May 15th.
So it's either in 2 weeks or you could go 4 weeks if you
May I
want.
look at my calendar real quick? The 15th, please.
Motion to continue?
With that, I'd like to make a motion to continue case number 15912 to May 15th.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue.
Thank you.
All right.
Item number 5, case number 15913 has been moved to the end of the docket. Item number 6, case number 15916 is request of Jordan Armstrong with GNS Sign Services for a variance to sign regulations, BBD Downtown Business District and the DSHA Downtown Scenic Highway area at 115 Harrison Avenue.
Jordan Armstrong, 1634 Southeast 23rd Street. I'm here if y'all have any questions.
Nobody signed up to speak on this one. Is there anybody who wants to address the board on this application? Okay, anything from the board?
I saw it. I think it looks great. My biggest question is, I went through it and am unsure, and maybe you know the answer to this. I'm still unsure why a variance is required here.
Well, I think because it's a monument sign and it's too big in the median or in the right
So
of
it's
way.
just the size difference from the new sign ordinance.
Yep.
Well, I think it's appropriate sized. I think it looks good.
Yeah, I do.
I'm lifelong Oklahoman. I'm proud of it to see it. So
Yep. What's it made out of? What's the material? Just
So it's all aluminum around the body of it, and then the faces is a polycarbonate. We had to choose that material so that it would illuminate at night.
yeah. No, it looks good. It's got landscaping right behind it. It's to scale. I have no problem with it.
I think we're ready for a motion then.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15916 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement to the sign regulation, for a variance to the sign regulation.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 7, case number 15886 is an application by Austin Cohen of For Big Home Sales LLC to allow home sharing, 3632 Northwest 65th Street.
Good afternoon, Austin Kane, 3632 Northwest 65th Street. This was a continuation from our last meeting, and Ms. Welsh was kind enough to be able to walk through a meeting with me, and we talked through the concerns from last meeting's special exception permit approval process. So what we did is we actually modified our request from last meeting, and so we are requesting 10 guests and not 12 from last time, and we are not going to be modifying the house to a 5-bedroom. We're going to keep it a 4-bedroom. There are county assessment documents that I submitted showing the 4 bedrooms. We actually have space to be able to sleep 12. So there's 3 king beds, 2 queen beds, and a sofa sleeper couch. And but we are asking for 10 guests. We're also asking for 1 year for the special exception and 5 vehicles in the driveway. So I tried to address any of the challenges from last time. I did receive the document from Ms. Lakin as well that was submitted again. And I'd like to request an approval with your permission, and I'd like to take any questions you guys have.
Nobody signed up to speak on this one, but I've got some protests in the packet. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, anything from the board?
When you were stating that you got the document from staff, was it the Tari Tibbetts?
What Ms. Welsh and I talked about was the change of use that was requested if you change it to a 5-bedroom house. And so we got on the phone call with Mr. Chris with the commercial permitting. And so we talked through the whole process of how it needs a fire suppression. And so we just agreed it was going to be simpler and easier not to go with the 12 guests, to maintain with the current standards of 2 per bedroom plus 2. And so we have 2 additional spaces for people to be able to stay in addition to that, but we're only requesting for 10 guests.
And I think the protests that we got last time, they were pretty adamant that they wanted no more than 8. We negotiated back and forth.
I think the
try to get
letter
to a
that was
number.
most recently sent asked for no more than 10.
10 from Tari, yeah, I did see that also.
So I understand you made some adjustments to the application to keep from having the change of use, but, and Sarah would have to correct me, is the threshold the number of guests as well as the number of bedrooms?
Yes, it's either or, and he would not be exceeding either.
So at 10, there's no need for a change?
It's 5 or more bedrooms and 12 or more guests.
Okay.
And I don't think I'd be not doing my diligence if I didn't ask for 9. How do you feel about 9, splitting the difference?
I appreciate that concern. We have 2 or 3 other homes that are smaller than this house that have been approved at 10. And so I feel like I definitely am meeting the expectations that has been expected before. And so I would certainly request 10 if possible.
I believe that I was 8 or 10 the last time we were here.
Not 9.
Yeah, that was my thing, just because I wanted to be fair, because there was an argument over the size of the house, the number of bedrooms, and to the ladies that couldn't attend today, I appreciate sending the letters in your absence, and I still want to be respectful to them. So I feel obligated, not to make things more complicated, but I feel obligated to honor what I said initially, which is that it would be 8, because the 5 bedrooms was my threshold, or the trigger to go to 10. And so I would have gone to 10 gone to 10 with that documentation saying we are going to have that additional bedroom. But without that, I want to stay consistent with what I said previously.
Ready for a motion?
Well, before we do that, let's get the agreement with the applicant. And it sounds like it's going to be 8.
We should also highlight
Or
that
10.
there's just 3 of us here, so.
I guess I need to request another continuation, I mean, I guess what you're referring to is, hey, there's only 3 that can vote. And so if 2 are going to vote for, or 3 are going to vote for 8, and 2 may vote for 9, you know, I want to be simple. At the same point, I know I'm trying to be certainly more than accommodating for the neighbors, and we've tried to be really good neighbors to this point in time. I don't know if there's anything I can really say or do at this point, you know, to accommodate their requests, because I'm really trying to do backflips backwards to help them.
Well, and I do know you operate other short-term rentals, and you obviously do operate a good business, because you don't have, when you come back from renewals, I don't believe you've had a lot of protests following that. And so what I would say today on this first one, first time going through, go with the 8, build your business, impress the neighbors, and in 1 year come back and talk to us again.
And I should highlight, at least one of these protests do cite having that 1-year time period that they may be willing to consider being happy with more guests. So while we may see other properties that you manage and see that there's no issue, for them it's the first time out of the gate, and
Fair.
they might want to just be comfortable with it coming back in a year saying, hey, this didn't change our life that much at all. So the biggest proof is in the pudding. After a year of operating, when folks realize that it hadn't really affected them in any major way, they tend to be more agreeable.
Certainly understand that. Well, I guess I'm at your mercy. So if you wanted to do 8, then I'm okay with that.
Ready for a motion?
8 sounds good to me. Ready for a motion, I think. No.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15886 on the basis that it meets statutory requirement for what, the variance?
Special.
Or special exception.
Second.
Well, let me read into the additions to the application, which is a maximum of 8 guests, quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., maximum of 5 vehicles, no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you for your time and consideration. Appreciate it.
Item number 8, case number 15899 is an application by Colton Haskin to allow home sharing located at 2529 Northwest 11th Street.
Haskins? Anybody here on this one? Let's roll it to the end of the docket with the others.
After
at
number
the
5
end
and
of the
after number
docket.
3.
Item number 9, case number 15901 is an application by Jackson Hollow Investments LLC to allow home sharing at 913 Northwest 44th Street.
Hello. My name's Clay Condry. I'm the owner.
Would you pull the microphone so we can get it on the record? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Name and address again.
Clay Condry, 913 Northwest 44th Street.
Tell us a little bit about your application.
So my application is for a single-family home that I built a few years ago that is currently my permanent residence, but prior I had rented it to Mike Muscala. He played for the Thunder, and then when Mike moved out, he got traded. I moved back in. So I would like to request a special exception for a home share license. 4-bedroom house, 8 guests, no more than 12 on the property. We've got parking for 4 cars on property. Other than that, I don't know. What other questions you guys have, I'd be happy to answer.
Nobody signed up to speak except you, so.
Yeah,
Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, anything from the board?
Just a few things, and there were no written protests either, so
great.
you just have a maximum of 8 guests?
I'm sorry?
A maximum of 8 guests?
Yes,
in the
sir.
application? It's a 4-bedroom home?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to put into the record for quiet hours from 9 PM to 8 AM, which is just changing it just a little bit. You had 10 to 7.
I'm sure that's fine. I mean, I've lived on that street now for 3 years. I'm close with all my neighbors. If there's any issues, they'll have my cell phone. I'm moving down the street, so I'm moving to 45th Street.
Okay, and so I'd also like to put a maximum number of cars to be 4.
Okay.
And no on-street parking, and for a term of 1 year.
Okay, great.
Okay. Ready for a motion?
Did you get all that? I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15901 on the basis that it meets statutory requirement for a special exception.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second, cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 10, case number 15902, is an application for special exception by Libby Ross on behalf of Jacob and Stephanie Krieger to allow home sharing, 1441 Northeast 9th Street.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Misty Stowe. I'm here for 1441 Northeast 9th Street. It is a 3-bedroom home. We're requesting a max occupancy of 6 guests.
Nobody signed up on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? No?
No? Just a few questions. So there was a code violation in January. Did you know that?
I am unaware of that.
Okay, so it says in January of, it was in, I don't know, let's see, a code violation, permit portal for operating home share. So did you get a license maybe to operate it without a special exception?
Not that I know of. We just took over management.
Okay. So it was issued in January of this year, a code violation for operating. So they were probably operating without having a special exception or a license. And so
Possibly.
now you're the property manager?
Yes, that's why I'm here.
So just a couple of things then to add to the application, if you would. I'd like to put quiet hours, well, you have them from 8 PM to 8 AM, but I'd like to put a maximum number of vehicles to be 3 on property and no on-street parking,
Absolutely.
and a term of 1 year.
Ready for a motion? Or was that a motion?
It's going to be the same.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15902 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the addition of maximum of 6 guests, quiet hours from 8 PM to 8 AM, a maximum number of vehicles at 3, and for a term of 1 year.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second, cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you so much.
Item number 11, case number 15904, is an application by William Burleson on behalf of Kelly Fasterling to allow home sharing at 3405 Northwest 159th Terrace. And we did
That's good
receive new
news.
protests
Sorry.
today, and we have them down here.
Oh, okay.
Would
Would you like me to grab them?
She'll get
It's a tree.
15904.
My name is William Burleson. I'm here on behalf of Kelly Fasterling to try to get a special exception for home sharing for 3405 Northwest 159th Terrace. And my address is 3000 East Britain.
Okay, nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anyone want to address the board on this application?
So you see that there's quite a few new protests.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to read them, but yes,
Neighborhood.
I did see
Yeah.
that. I talked to Ms. Lakin about them briefly.
Yeah, they just came in today, so.
So most of the protests are nearly the same, but their concerns are traffic, noise, parking problems, and loss of neighborhood safety and character. So just that you're aware of that. And those protests, I think it would behoove you to give your contact information to the surrounding neighbors, the houses across the street, the houses around it, just so that they had your contact. Are you a property manager or are you the owner?
Manager,
So, property manager.
yes.
And do you manage other short-term rentals?
Excuse me?
Do you manage other short-term rentals?
Yes, we do. I'm with a Real Home Away, and we have several.
And that's what I was looking for also. It's in the application sometimes. So this is a 3-bedroom home.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, a maximum of 8 guests, but it's just a 3-bedroom. Can you tell me how you can get to 8 with just a 3 beds?
I
Do you
believe
know?
it was just recommendations. I can't remember where I read it. It was 2 per bedroom plus 2, and I think I just did that for all of our applications.
Okay. So what I'd like to do today, and especially in lieu of how many protests there are, is to limit the number for this first term. And again, that term would be for 1 year, which the first time they come through, I always propose just a 1-year term on that, just
Okay.
again to see how they'll operate. And you're not familiar with the bedroom setup and how this, you know, what the bed situation in the home is?
They're standard rooms. There's a master and 3 smaller ones.
Okay, would you be okay then with a maximum of 6 guests for the first time?
Yes. I mean, like the previous gentleman said, I'm at your mercy.
And then I'd like to impose quiet hours to be 9 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And it looks like you can use the garage for parking,
Yes, we can.
the way you have us marked out. So I'd say a maximum of 4 cars with no on-street parking.
Okay, yeah.
And then again for a term of 1 year.
Ready for a motion?
Good. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15904 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with a maximum number of guests being 6, quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to 4, no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 12, case number 15905, special exception by William Burleson on behalf of Chance Worthington and Lorraine Worthington to allow home sharing at 508 Northwest 183rd Street.
William Burleson, 3000 East Britain, on behalf of Chance and Lorraine Worthington, for special exception home sharing at 508 Northwest 183rd Street. And this one is 4-bed, 2-bath, 1837 square feet. So I think because of the increased bedroom, we did ask for 10. It has 3 parking spots in the garage and 2 in the driveway. You could probably fit 3, but we just put 2 there. So 5 parking.
Anyone sign up to speak?
Not on this one. No. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay.
No. There is a couple of written protests in the packet, which you probably have received on this one also. Going back to the application, then I'd like to make some changes to that also and go back to a maximum guest of 8. Quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. A maximum number of vehicles to be 5 with no on-street parking and for a term of 1 year. Agreeable?
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15905 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for special exception with the additions of a maximum number of guests to be 8, quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to be 5, no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 13, case number 15906, is a application for special exception for William Burleson on behalf of Mecca Management LLC to allow home sharing at 4308 Northwest 158th Street.
William Burleson, 3000 East Britain, on behalf of Mecca Management LLC, applying for a special exception for home sharing for 4308 Northwest 158th Street. This is another 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. I believe just 4 spots. Well, just 2 in the garage, 2 on the driveway.
Okay, I got one signed up
Let's hear from
in
them.
addition to the protest. Adrian Leonard.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I live
Give us your
two doors-
name and
I'm
address.
so sorry, yes, Adrian Leonard.
Thank you.
4316 Northwest 158th Street. Our house is currently 2 doors down from this home. That was a very old picture of the neighborhood before anything had been built. It's currently about half built out. The area in which this home sits, if you go back to the map of the neighborhood, there's a very tight bend right there at the end of the street as it turns toward the north. And there are several driveways all along in that area, so there's not much on-street parking as it is. So I feel like additional guests in that area would be a problem for the neighbors. The other issue is it's a highly concentrated family neighborhood, a lot of children. The neighborhood elementary school is right outside the entrance to this addition, and the bus stop is at the end of the street. So there are a lot of kids running around all the time. And then our neighborhood pays a maintenance fee to upkeep the pool and the common areas. And I feel like having additional guests that are vacation renters would cause an additional financial burden on the neighborhood itself. So those are my main concerns right now. Did you have any questions that I could answer?
Nobody else signed up. Is there anybody else that wants to address the board on this one? I got one hand in the back. Come on up.
And before you go, I did hear your concerns, and I do live in the area. I'm very familiar with this, and so, you know, I'll take all of that into consideration.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Klein, and I reside at 15901 Dahlia Road. My address is literally across the street from the property that's involved here. I reside there with my wife, Kristen Klein, my 4-year-old daughter, Ruby, and my 19-month-old daughter, Iris. We own this property. We don't rent. I submitted a written protest last Friday. It should be included in your information, but I wanted to appear today to personally ask you to deny this exception. My family moved into our home in February of 2023. We were the first family to move into the Lone Oak North neighborhood. For us, this is our forever home. We chose this neighborhood because it allowed us to build a new home for our growing family, be in a good school district, and have a large corner lot for our girls to run and play. Seeing all the new construction since February of 23 has been exciting, and we've loved meeting all of our new neighbors. Lone Oak North is a wonderful and growing family-oriented neighborhood. We have neighborhood gatherings, our kids play in the streets in the evenings, our pool and playground get a lot of use. This is the type of neighborhood that Oklahoma City should be proud of. Most of the people living in our neighborhood own their homes, but there are a handful of long-term rentals. These long-term tenants choose to live here primarily so their children can attend Deer Creek Public Schools, again, keeping with the family-oriented neighborhood aspect. And while our covenants don't explicitly ban short-term rentals, it does explicitly prohibit commercial activities, which this is. The property at issue in this case would be the very first short-term rental operating in Lone Oak North neighborhood. Allowing short-term rentals will change the intent of the neighborhood because these businesses inherently are not family-oriented and because guests have no attachment to the neighborhood. To maintain the harmony with the general purpose and intent of the neighborhood, this short-term rental should be denied. We've all seen or heard the horror stories about short-term rentals being notorious nuisances, known for crowded parties, drunken guests, loud noises and guests, and trashing the neighborhood areas. Like I said, my family lives directly across the street from this property. I can see this house in the driveway from my back porch. I do not want a constant row of cars parked along my property with guests walking through my yard. I do not want these guests waking up my children at all hours of the day and night to party and making loud noises. I do not want their trash blowing onto my property, and I do not want to expose my children to the shenanigans of drunken guests unnecessarily. I am confident that I am not alone in sharing these concerns. My last neighborhood had some short-term rentals. We left that neighborhood after seeing these horrors happen. And it's because of those horrors that our city council wisely enacted ordinances to rein in short-term rentals. Those ordinances made the default to not allow short-term rentals and empowered this board with the broad discretion to deny special exceptions if allowing it is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the neighborhood or adversely affects the use of neighboring properties. This board is under no obligation to grant this special exception. You have the option to deny this business from setting up shop in our residential neighborhood to preserve our family-oriented neighborhood. While short-term rental ordinances may be new, Oklahoma City has a long history of zoning laws to ensure these types of activities are not intermingled unfairly. The property issue here is in a residential neighborhood, but this short-term rental will be used as a business with guests coming and going, similar to a hotel. Well, there are already dozens of hotels nearby along Memorial Road. And aside from actual hotels, there are already at least 16 other short-term rental options in other nearby neighborhoods. One was just approved a few moments ago. The market demand for short-term rentals in this area does not necessitate adding more because alternative options are plentiful. As I've said, this board has the authority and broad discretion to deny the special exception. However, should this board choose to side with the business and against the nearby homeowners, the board must impose specific conditions to protect nearby existing development from hazardous and obnoxious conditions, to assure safety, and to prevent a nuisance. In my written protest, I included a lengthy list of proposed conditions, and while the host has included some of these conditions as house rules on their already listed Airbnb, house rules can be easily changed. You have the authority to mandate all of those conditions. And in fact, I also do want to point out that in their application, they listed 10 for their maximum guests, but on their Airbnb, they listed 6. So I find that a little interesting. To conclude my protest, I humbly request that this board deny the special exception. If the special exception is approved, then conditions must be imposed. The Lone Oak North neighborhood is a family-oriented neighborhood, and we neither want nor need short-term rentals and the known inevitable nuisances they bring. I hope you will deny this special exception to protect not only my children, but all the other children residing in the Lone Oak North neighborhood.
Okay. Anything from the board?
And a few questions, maybe statements. We will follow the ordinance to the best that we can follow the ordinance, mind you, and we do on all the cases. And I've seen your list, I read your protest. I've seen the application, the Airbnb application online also. And again, we'll do everything we can. And that's why you've seen us today. I mean, we'll issue a one-year term. We want to see how it goes. It's really hard for us to make a determination of whether this is going to be a really good business or a really bad business before it actually happens. And so, you know, those are some of the reasons why we do what we do.
I completely understand.
I do what I do.
I'm an attorney, so I understand the process that's involved, so it's okay.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? You want to respond? Yes, please.
I didn't do this earlier, but just to give a little more background to who we are, I work for A Real Home Away. We are a locally operated housing provider focused on offering reliable, fully furnished homes for individuals and families in transition. Our primary mission is to provide mid to long-term housing solutions for people who need a stable, comfortable place to stay during life's unexpected moments. We regularly work with insurance companies, with people displaced by fire, flood, or other disasters, healthcare professionals, corporate clients, relocating families, military personnel, visiting academics, et cetera, et cetera. That's our primary mission. We would like a short-term permit to fill in gaps where necessary, but that's not our intent. That's not really what we want to do. And then a couple other things that were mentioned. We've already agreed to no on-street parking, and we'll make sure that is clearly communicated. The owner does pay the HOA fee, but any guests will not use the common areas. And then lastly, the city did rein in already with your new regulations, short-term rentals. So there's a lot more, I mean, I think there's like a 10% rule per, I don't know it exactly, but I believe this application has done everything correctly, and we're within your guidelines to be accepted.
Do you have a response directly to the claims that the property was being operated before having a short-term rental license?
Did he say that?
Well, it's on Airbnb. I don't know if you've operated. I was going to ask that question
Yeah.
also. Do you know did A Real Home Away file the application or the
I don't know
Airbnb.
how long we have been operating this, but again, most of our homes, most of our bookings are midterm to long-term. So it has probably been booked, but I don't have that information.
How long did you say you've been managing this property?
I've been with the company for about a year, but this specific property, I'm not sure.
probably less than a couple of months, and that's probably why you filed the application for a short-term rental.
Yes.
As the manager. So, I know it's a 4-bedroom home. And you are advertising it currently for a 6 guests maximum. Would you consider that to be in the first year of the application?
Yeah, I don't know why that's on there. I mean, that wouldn't even fill the house. I would ask for 8, just like we've done in the previous ones, 2 per room.
Well, I'll just jump out and say I'm only going to do 6 on this one. And this is not directly at you. If I fully understand corporations throwing one person into a pool of sharks, but it doesn't seem like that there's a lot of information. I don't know how much disconnect there's been with what information they've given you or how much they've given you that you haven't shared with us, but this is the exact type of thing that we tell homeowners that we are on the lookout for, which is poor management, and they've not done a good job preparing you. If you don't have this information that we're asking you for, it's not anything major or highly technical. It's just how long has this property been leased for? Has it been even leased prior to? And again, I don't want you to take any of this personally because, as far as I know, somebody could have given you this assignment last week, but it doesn't change the fact that the management company responsible for this seems wholly unprepared to even present the case for this. So I feel that I'm being generous in saying that I'm willing to consider 6. I absolutely won't go above 6 on this application.
So you can, again, accept that today, and again, there's 2 board members not here. You can take a deferral, get more information, and be able to maybe give a better case as to why. But I would have to agree with my colleague on that, and today, you're advertising 6 online already. One of the suggestions from the neighbors who wrote a protest was a maximum of 6. So I
So
get
the
behind
questions
it.
you really wanted answers, how long we have been managing this property and what
Right,
else?
and it is advertised currently without a special exception on Airbnb, which would be out of compliance with the ordinance. And so I'd like to know how long it's been, if it's actually been rented
Okay,
and operated as an Airbnb or a short-term rental.
okay.
I think a lot of the other things are answered. I would suggest the quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to be 4, and no on-street parking I would also request, and then for a term of a year at the most.
Okay, no, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with 6. That's
Okay.
what they have that right now, so
Okay.
good with that.
And the other adjustments also? The quiet hours,
Oh,
the
yes, sir.
vehicles,
Yes, sir.
and the term? Okay, and obviously you have multiple protesters and some here, so please share your contact information with them so that they have that in order to be able to get in hold of you if something was to be different than what the application has stated. Anything else?
Ready for a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15906 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the following adjustments, and that would be a maximum number of guests to be 6, quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to be 4 for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 14, case number 15907 is an application by William Burleson on behalf of A Real Home Away to allow home sharing at 15905 Sky Run Drive.
William Burleson, 3000 East Britain, on behalf of A Real Home Away, wanting a special exception for home sharing, 15905 Sky Run Drive. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. I will note that we did previously have a special exception, and it says here it expired August 24th, and that's my fault. When the city did the moratorium on the short-term rentals, I took that as meaning even these meetings would not be held until new rules came out. It was not until I started putting things together when the new rules were released that I realized I could have gotten that. So I will ask on this one for a 3-year, just because we've had it before. But that's up to you guys.
Anyone sign up to speak?
No, not on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Nobody signed up.
And this one doesn't have any protests, but what I would say is that this being out since August of 2024, we're gonna have to start over.
Okay,
Just by precedence, we've done that before, and this
Sure.
is too far out.
sure.
Everything else, do you happen to know the bedroom setup on a 3-bedroom, how you can get to 8?
No, sir, I, just like I did with the other ones, I did 2 per room plus,
Right. I'm gonna ask for a maximum number of 6.
okay,
And the quiet hours from 9 PM to 8 AM. A maximum number of vehicles to be 4, and no on-street parking, and for a term of 1 year. If you're in agreement with that,
yes.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion now.
I'll make a motion to approve case number 15907 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the modifications of a maximum number of guests to be 6, quiet hours from 9 PM to 8 AM, a maximum number of vehicles to be 4, with no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 15, case number 15908, is an application by William Burleson on behalf of Benjamin Clark to allow home sharing, 16216 Whistle Creek Boulevard.
Last one, William Burleson, 3000 East Britain, on behalf of Benjamin Clark, looking for a special exception for home sharing for 16216 Whistle Creek Boulevard. This one, again, 4-bed, 2-bath, 1825 square feet. I believe we have 4 parking.
Did anyone sign up to speak on this?
Nobody signed up? No, not on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay.
And there were no protests written on this one that came with the packet either. I would like to make some modifications to the application with the maximum number of guests being 8, and the quiet hours from 9 PM to 8 AM, a maximum number of vehicles to be 4, with no on-street parking, and for a term of 1 year.
Sounds good.
Anything else? No. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15908 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the modifications of a maximum number of guests to be 8, quiet hours from 9 PM to 8 AM, a maximum number of vehicles to be 4 with no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you all for your time.
Item number 16, case number 15914, is an application by Gordon Zama on behalf of Corey Callaway and Lordy Williams to allow home sharing, 10005 Hollyhead Way.
Hello. This is a single-family home.
Give us your name and address.
Oh,
for
Gordon
the record,
Lazama.
please.
Gordon Lazama, 3209 Walden Avenue.
Okay. Okay, tell us a little bit about your application, please.
It's a single-family home, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was actually the house that my parents bought when we first moved here from Guam, and my sister had purchased it from them, which is Lonnie Callaway, Lonnie and Corey Callaway. They've since moved to California, and so this is kind of a way that we're gonna try to be able to keep this home in the family, and also have some kind of income stream coming from the property. This will be my first time to do this. I am involved in a network of people who are professionals in dealing with the short-term rentals as well. I've kind of read through some of there's 2 protests that were on there, and I live literally a mile and a half from the property, so I'm going to be I'm very close to there, and I'd be managing the property as well. So, is there any questions?
Nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, anything from the board then?
I just have a few things and some modifications maybe to the application, if you'd be agreeable. It's a 4-bedroom home.
Yes.
How can you get to the 10 guests that you're requesting?
So there could be a bunk bed on 2 of the bedrooms. There'll be 4. It would be like a 2. There's bunk beds where you can have a full size and then a single on top. So that's 3 there. 3 on the other 2 in the other 2 bedrooms as well.
Okay.
And the rooms are large enough to do that as well, and not block the windows.
With that and with the written protests that are in the packet, I'm going to suggest the maximum number of guests for this first term to be 8.
Okay.
And that would be just 2 per bedroom. I'd like to add the quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. Maximum number of vehicles to be 4 and not allow any on-street parking.
Okay.
And the term would be for a year for this first time through.
Thank you.
Agreeable with that?
Sounds good to me.
Anything else?
Ready for a motion?
With that, I will make a motion to approve case number 15914 on the statutory basis, on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the modification of a maximum number of guests to be 8, quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to be 4 with no on-street parking for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 17, case number 15909, is an application by Andrew and Anna Hayes to allow home sharing at 4212 Rankin Road.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Hayes, and address is 4212 Rankin Road here in Oklahoma City. So this is a little bit different of an application because this is actually my family's home. So we are going to be living there. We intended to move here immediately, but my mother-in-law's in the hospital right now, and so we weren't able to move right away. So our goal is to be here as a family, and so the reason that we're seeking the permit is so that we can, before we move here, that we can still afford to keep the house. When we started looking in the area, my realtor told us that the type of house we were looking for could take up to a year to find, and so we weren't planning on finding the home we wanted right away. That said, I do intend to rent out the home for some period of time, and so my goal is to make sure that I'm, doing that according to the regulations. So, ultimately, my real goal is to be a good neighbor and to make sure that I'm adhering to all the regulations, not only of the city and the state, but also the HOA. So we have, we've set up the home for families, right? I've got bunk beds, I've got kids' toys, and I did all this for my kids. I've got a Brio train set for my son, Isaiah. I've got magnet tiles for my daughter, Michaela. They picked out, all their favorite pool floaties and everything. So we just set it up for us. And because of that, while I know we do have a good number of protests, and I appreciate that, I've read all through all of them. The fact of the matter is, because the home is set up specifically for families, it is not there to be a party house, right? That's also why we have, I put the number of guests in the application. We have 2 bunk beds in one of the rooms, queens. They're large rooms. It's almost 3,000 square foot home, so plenty of space. The rooms are good sized. So we've got, in terms of bedroom layout, because I know, Mr. Noble, you've been asking about that, we have, in the primary, we have king bed. In bedroom number 2, we have 2 double queens in there. And then in the third, we have queen bunk beds and a trundle. And then we also have a crib, and we have a, in the office, which is really, they call it a 3-bedroom, but there's pretty much a 4th bedroom there with, we have a sleeper couch in there. So that's the bedroom layout. In addition to, this intending really to be for family use, for my family, and only renting to families, we won't be renting this out to locals because if you rent a house and you live in the city, you're normally doing that because you want to throw a party somewhere else besides your house. The one exception to that is if any of our friends or neighbors would like to have their families stay there, over the holidays or whatever, we would love to have that. So we will have an exception for locals as long as we know them. In addition to that, I have put noise monitoring software in the house so that if the decibels are over a certain level, I will be immediately notified personally, so that the neighbors don't necessarily have to call me, although I would love to give them all of my contact information. I'm there all week, so I'm going to be going around and meeting everybody and make sure they have my cell phone number directly. So I'm fine with whatever quiet hours we want. We love the neighborhood, and that's why we want our family to be there. So anybody that stays there, we also want them to love and respect the neighborhood just like we do. Finally, I put in a Bluetooth monitoring system so that if at any point the number of devices on property exceeds a certain threshold, I will also be personally notified. And there's escalating levels of this, so as soon as I get notified, I notify the guests immediately if that occurs, right? If they don't do anything about it, I call them directly. If they don't do anything about it, I send either my local agent or I'll send the police right away. So although, again, we don't anticipate any of that being a problem because it's going to be for families. So in terms of the, kind of the number, I understand, Mr. Noble, you've been asking for fewer. I come from a big family. We've got 12 in my family, and so, I just set it up, again, to have my family over. And when I'm there, obviously, we'll have probably more folks there, but it won't be in a short-term capacity at that point. Also, to address one of your other usual items in terms of the off-street parking, totally understood. We do have parking space in the drive. I would just note that many of my neighbors do also park on the street, and I don't find it to be a problem. So I'm okay with saying we can't allow on-street parking. I would maybe ask that we just say no, perhaps no overnight on-street parking. But again, I understand fully. The neighborhood in general, I've been there for several days now and driven around, and most of the homes do have cars out front. So, but not a problem either way. So as I said, I've read through all of the protests, and I really find them to be understandable for sure. That said, a few of them have characterized me as a, investor from California out to make a buck. It's not the case here. I'm not just trying to invest. I'm trying to live here. I'm trying to have a place for my family, and do want to rent it out some. But that is not the goal. I'm not doing it as a business or an investment. I know there was a lot of other stuff in the protest, and I wrote a statement for each one of the concerns. I know for time reasons, maybe we don't do that, but I think we've got some folks here who would love to speak. So before we get to that, any questions?
No, there are people signed up.
I've got one.
Okay.
Kelly,
Let's
you're
hear
up.
from them.
Okay, great.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Kelly Work. My address is 105 North Hudson, Suite 304, Oklahoma City. That's my office address. I'm here as attorney for the Summerfield Community Association, which is the homeowners association for the Summerfield area where this proposed application is located. And there are also several members of the board of directors for the homeowners association that are present in opposition to this application. This is not an appropriate location for short-term rental use, and we request that you deny the application. The Summerfield neighborhood is located generally south of Northwest 122nd Street and extends east and west on either side of Meridian. and north of the Bluff Creek Park, which extends there to the southern edge of the neighborhood, as you see from the aerial photo. Summerfield neighborhood was established in 1975 and today is comprised of 692 homes. It is a quiet residential neighborhood with a wide variety of residents, including families with children, single and married adults, and persons ranging from young in age to seniors. There is a strong sense of community and neighborhood cohesion in the Summerfield area. And as of this time, there have been no short-term rental special exception applications approved within the Summerfield neighborhood. This proposed short-term rental at this location on Rankin Road in Summerfield would adversely affect the neighboring properties. The high turnover of guests that is to be expected with short-term rental use will erode the sense of community and reduce the neighborhood cohesion. Short-term renters may be on vacation or attending celebrations and are more likely to host loud gatherings, which will likely disrupt the peace and quiet for the full-time residents of the neighborhood. The high turnover of unfamiliar people coming into the neighborhood that would be associated with short-term rental is also a cause for concern, as that creates possible safety issues. Unlike with long-term rentals, there is much less vetting of guests in connection with short-term rentals. With short-term rentals, there will likely be more comings and going from the property, which increases traffic on the neighborhood streets. Short-term renters may bring multiple vehicles, which would crowd the limited residential parking that exists in the neighborhood. There is not any available accessory parking nearby. We already have experienced an increase in corporate acquisitions of single-family residential properties in this area, which can drive up home prices and can negatively affect the sense of community in the neighborhood. This can result in local families or first-time buyers being priced out of the area. Allowing a short-term rental at this location on Rankin Road will decrease the desirability of both this street, Rankin Road in Summerfield, and the neighborhood more generally. It is, of course, as has been mentioned, up to the Board of Adjustment, up to you all in your discretion to determine whether a particular special exception application is appropriate, as is demonstrated with the significant level of protest that has been submitted both in writing and the persons who are present here today. We submit that this location is not an appropriate location for short-term rentals. We ask that you find that this is not an appropriate location and that you deny the application. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of me.
Anything from the board?
Just a couple of things in reading in your protest, the one that you wrote personally, plus I did read all of the others, and I live near this property, so I drove by here 3 different times, once in the middle of the day, once in the morning, once in the evening, just to see what the street looked like and you know what was the actual on the ground happenings in the back part of this neighborhood where this house is located. So I'm very familiar with it and understand the neighborhood and the protests that were written and the people that are here. You state in your protest that it would not be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning regulation. Can you comment on that a little bit? I mean, you know, all of these applications that we see, especially the very first one, we don't know how it's going to interact with the neighborhood. This has a swimming pool, an outdoor, you know, event place. It has a pool house in the backyard. I mean, it's got a lot of potential to be noisy, which again would be some of the reason why I would ask the applicant for additional time and quiet hours. But is there anything more that you could add to that one?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, there have not been any special exception approvals in this area. The neighborhood, however, has had experience with a couple of short-term rental operations that were started without having received approvals, and those experiences were pretty negative across the board, generally resulting from noise and trash and bachelor parties, that sort of thing. And those were able to be stopped because they hadn't had the necessary approvals from the city. So I think the concern, of course, is the case with many of the single-family residential additions. There are restrictive covenants that do not permit properties within the addition to be used for business purposes, and that has successfully operated to have the neighborhood be maintained for single-family residential use that is devoted to families, and of course there are certainly some long-term rentals included in the neighborhood, but those don't tend to have the kind of problems that you associate with the short-term rentals and the frequent comings and goings. So based on that, the neighborhood feels strongly that the neighborhood is not appropriate for the short-term rental use, and that if it were to begin in the neighborhood, that it undoubtedly will have an adverse impact on the peace and quiet that the neighborhood currently enjoys.
And I'm sure you've counseled the neighbors on the fact that this isn't the end-all be-all. There is the opportunity for the neighborhood to use the CC&Rs, to go to district court, and to make a challenge there. We have been directed that the labeling of a business to be in a single-family neighborhood, an R1 zone neighborhood, is not enough criteria for us to use to not allow it.
These restrictions, of course, were created back in 1975, and so, yeah, I understand that that the ordinance does specify that if there's specific language prohibiting short-term rentals, the intent is there, but there at this point at least there has not been an amendment to the covenants and restrictions that would specifically prohibit short-term rentals. It prohibits business use generally.
Right. And know that we've asked the question also. I mean, from our own legal staff, that we've and that's the reply that we got also. You state that it fails to meet the standards for the special exception approval, and maybe give me more input on that one. That what is that it doesn't meet?
Well, those requirements that talk in terms of the compatibility of the use and the potential for there being adverse impact, I mean, those are really depend on our fact and circumstances kind of determinations for the board to make. But I would say that those we would refer to those particular provisions of the special exception application that say, or the special exception ordinance that say that that is one of the things that the board is to determine is whether or not the use is one that is compatible for the area and whether or not there will be an adverse impact on the surrounding properties. And we, in our view, that this use, if it were to be allowed, would inevitably adversely affect the surrounding properties in the neighborhood more generally.
You did bring up also that the application, so something in the application that you see that you don't agree with or would like to see changed?
Well,
Because I'm willing, I'm going to make some changes to this application, mind you, but
Yeah.
I just want to know from your point of view, from the feedback from the neighbors.
well, I would certainly, I mean, their proposal is certainly excessive in our view in terms of the number of guests that they're seeking to allow and the absence of other limitations. So we don't want to see the application approved at all. If the board is inclined to approve it, we certainly want to have the maximum conditions and limitations consistent with what the board has done on other similar cases.
So,
For example, at least what we were provided, it shows they're seeking approval for 13 guests for this three-bedroom house. So that would seem to be very excessive in our view.
okay. And in reading through some of the others, I just made notes of some of the main concerns, which was noise, parking, trash, street traffic, and then the overall community. So,
Yes.
All right.
anything else?
Anything else, Kelly?
Thank you.
Kelly was the only one who signed. Is there anybody who wants to address the board that has something different to say than what Kelly did? So you're up.
Would you like me to respond to all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till we're finished with the protest and bring you back up. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Bergen, and I am a Summerfield resident, and I'm on the HOA. And I will appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'll do my best not to be redundant. But a couple of things bear a little more scrutiny, perhaps, and no disrespect intended, but the proposal and the kind of family purpose that has been expressed to you is really different from the proposal that comes before the board. And the board is bound by the application, and whatever is granted in the application, frankly, casts a wide net. We touched on it briefly, 13 people in what is essentially a three-bedroom house with a presumably pretty small office with a pull-out couch is way over occupancy, with all due respect. And the idea that, you know, up to 13 cars could be parking on the street there is also out of line. There are the usual 4 parking spaces in the driveway, and there's a turnaround, but I don't know anybody who has parking skills to put 13 cars in that driveway. And beyond that, Rankin Road is both a dead-end street and an uphill street. So the visibility in that area and its ability to handle traffic is pretty limited. I would also point out that there's no limitations sought on the hours of using the pool, and we all know how noise carries at night. And also point out that despite the suggestion that this is really kind of a family purpose, they have requested the ability to use all available, social media and other available marketing to rent this place. So it's going to be out there with every other Airbnb according to the face of the application. And it's just not consistent with the neighborhood. These folks bought this place, I think, 60 days ago, and they're asking for 3 years of 13-person occupancy and parking, and I think that is clearly excessive, and it just doesn't match with the character of the neighborhood. We've got an awful lot of old folks, and myself among them, and they don't move so fast, and they get out walking in the evenings, and we are fortunate to have some new young families, and they're out on the street and walking quite a bit, and going up and down because there are three community pools in the area, which also creates a lot of people who walk to the pool. And there's also, of course, the park at the base of Meridian there. So this is a commercial business, and I appreciate that it's going to be owned by a family that hopes to live there at some point. But the proposal before you is one for a commercial enterprise, and I respectfully suggest that it ought to be considered that way. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for coming down again. And I hear all of your protests and the rest of the neighborhood, and you've heard us kind of negotiate all of these applications, and I will do again.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, you're up again.
Well, thank you for coming down and for letting me know, the challenges that you see from, from short-term rentals, and I absolutely understand and agree with them. I'll just respond to a few of them, and I will note that I did actually email the HOA and ask when I bought the property if it was okay to use it as a short-term rental, and that's in the email, and they said yes, provided it's for residential and for single family. And so, I did try to do that.
Wait, one at a time, he's speaking.
I have the email if you'd like it, but that's neither here nor there. I was trying to make sure that I checked into it before doing anything. In terms of the level of protest which was called out for this particular property, fully understand that. The HOA did actually send out a notice to all of the nearly 700 homes saying that this hearing would be today, and so that's why we received an unusual number of letters as opposed to the one or none on some of the others. Of course, I'm required to notify a certain number, and then it was expanded. So. In terms of high turnovers and the fact that it's a commercial enterprise and the number of folks that will be coming through, certainly understand that. Again, my goal is not for this to be a commercial enterprise, and we actually have control over. I haven't set up any of the booking sites at all yet. In fact, I don't do this as a career here. But you can actually block out dates. So my goal is really to have maybe 1 or 2 families per month stay there. And with the intention that they can come and actually experience the neighborhood and experience the community, perhaps want to move there or want to move into the area. So vetting was another really important one, and I absolutely understand that, that vetting in terms of better at a hotel, perhaps, but I will make sure that I get IDs for every guest and that I know who's going to be on property at any given time. They will have to register. They will not be allowed to be any unregistered guests, and if there are, I'll see that on the Ring camera, what have you. I'll make sure that that's taken care of. In terms of the guest count and the car count, I understand all of that. Again, families, right? So kids are not driving cars. We're not talking about 13 cars. And in terms of the higher guest count, they're ideally, again, families with kids, and so they can have a few more kids than, I'm not talking about, 12 adults, right? That's not the intention. And I do understand that what the intention is may not be the reality, but my goal is to make sure that the intention becomes the reality and that we're not going to allow any of the sort of behavior and things that can come along with this. So I know we've taken a long time on this one. I appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any other questions. And then, Mr. Noble, I understand you'll have some suggestions. Sorry. In terms of the 3-year term, I just applied for what was permissible, fully accepting the 1 year and whatever you think would be good. In terms of the quiet hours as well, anything you would like.
So I just want to recap a couple of things. You don't live here locally?
Right now, I live in the Rankin property, but I travel a lot for work. I have a house in California. I've got other properties, so.
What is your plan for management whenever you have guests staying at the property?
Yeah, so I'm not using a property management firm per se right now because, again, I'm not planning to rent this out full-time. I'm not planning to have a high turnover rate. I do have several local agents in the area who can help me with anything. I have a maintenance manager I've already set up an agreement with, and then other services, housekeeping, lawn care, all that good stuff. So I do have a local contact, but I would love that the neighbors would call me directly if there's anything that comes up. If I need to send somebody, I can certainly do that locally. And then if it's a real big thing, I'll be here the next day.
Well, I think that's what I'm getting at, is if there's a severe issue there, you'd be the point of contact that they would reach out to since you're managing it yourself?
To begin with, but I'd also be happy to provide them directly to my local contact.
The local contact is a maintenance person, or the local contact is responsible?
It's Rand Leonard. He owns and operates a number of his own rental properties here in town and will be doing the maintenance for me.
So if you have guests that are staying at the property and something gets out of hand, somebody does throw a party, the neighbors want that shut down as soon as possible, they would reach out to you and you would reach out to this individual who would?
They're more than welcome to reach out to either directly to the local person or to me direct. I'm good with either one. They can have both contacts and use them at their discretion.
My other question is also, what is the square footage on the home?
About 2,800, 2763, I believe.
Okay, so let's talk about the application and maybe some adjustments. The maximum number of guests is probably, for me, the main one that I see.
Yep, understood.
You've heard what I've asked for in previous applications. On this one, and this goes with precedents that I've done many times before, I will say a maximum guest of 7.
Okay, that feels difficult from a family perspective, which is what I would really like to do. And so I think it feels a little bit limiting to say that larger families can't stay in the property. I understand where you're coming from, absolutely, but that would be my main challenge with that, and it feels like it would be limiting to the type of family that I would like to be in the property when I'm not there.
And understood, and I'll just go back to this single-family neighborhood, the size of these homes. I'd be surprised if 5% of this neighborhood has 7 people living in it. So again, I think 7 is a number that I could get behind. I know that's a big step, but it is. It
is. I'm assuming that there's not a whole lot I haven't already said to change your mind. So
right. And and I know you live in California. You have it's a long ways to travel to be back and forth. I've said it before. There's actually only 3 of us here. There could be up to 5. So the voting could be different. But today, I think for me, I'm gonna stick with a maximum of 7. I'm gonna keep those quiet hours at 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I'd say a maximum number of vehicles to be 5, and of course a 1-year term. That's what I can get behind. I think anyone else have anything else?
I think all of those are absolutely reasonable. For my preference, the guests being the one exception.
But again, you heard what the other applications all day have been and where we stand.
Oh yeah,
I'm siding with the neighbors as much as I can.
Yeah,
I mean,
can I just
I think
ask
their preference would be 0.
Yeah, understood. So there's a lot of much smaller properties that have a much higher guest count. Is that because they come back and ask for the higher guest count in future?
Yeah, I mean, they can come back. They maybe have a breakdown, a better breakdown of the size and the share. But what I think a lot of it is how much opposition you might have to this certain property, as much as, you know, how you can accommodate. To make it a business in an R1 zone neighborhood is, you know, a stretch in itself. When the CCNR say they don't want a business in there, I think this is basically what they meant. They didn't know what short-term rental was in 1978. You know, it just wasn't there. And so I personally try to side with the neighbors as much as I can, and the number of guests is probably the main one that I do.
Okay.
You operate a great business, you know, there's not parties being thrown in the back. You come back in 12 months and we look at it very differently.
Right. And I mean, that is sincerely, like, that is my hope, is that there's no issue that anybody has. You're going to see me and my wife and kids there more often than probably anybody else. So I hope that will be, you know, a fun thing. But all right. Well,
In agreement?
Yeah, I would just encourage, it sounds like you're already planning to do this, but share your contact information with them.
Yep.
I'm always a little bit leery of somebody operating one that doesn't live locally. I don't have anything against somebody purchasing and operating an Airbnb that doesn't live locally, but without a property manager, it just exposes you to all types of issues that don't get resolved in a timely manner. And
Sure.
I will just forewarn you, when you come back in a year for a renewal application, if these folks show up and the report is, this went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong, and they have a laundry list of issues that they had in the management of it, you kind of lose the advantage that you have in coming here, and that's one thing I do want to point out as well. You have an advantage in the sense that you haven't operated. So we can't look at you and say, well, he's going to manage this property poorly, which is one of the biggest reasons we would turn something down. So you're starting off with a blank slate in that you get the ability to operate it. But after that first year, we're going to go off of the historical performance and what these folks have to say. And so I think that that's a big thing. I also want to reiterate something that Don said, is just a lot of times the spirit and what's actually expressed in the HOAs, there's some discontinuity there.
Yep,
And
understood.
again, one of the things that plays into your favor is the fact that, you know, upon our legal review and our training, the determination was made that the covenants have to expressly state that expressly state that in the HOA, short-term rentals are not allowed. They have to be called out specifically, not indirectly in the terms of operating a business. So there's a few things that you have going in your favor, and so I would say take this opportunity now to manage above and beyond, so that when we see you again for a renewal application, it's not an even higher mountain to climb. And I'll say to you folks that are here, one of the biggest thing that you can do is document. So we'll listen to anything that you have to say, but I think the cases that come before us where somebody's documented, trash that's left out, the evidence of, you know, parties that were had at a property, calls to police or code enforcement, those types of things go a long way. So, and to that same point, you want to make sure that there's not a record of that, which means that you have to
Fully
manage it really
understood.
well.
I feel like there is a little bit of a higher degree of scrutiny on this than many of the others, but I accept that and I understand it, and I'll take that responsibility seriously. And in terms of making sure everybody's got my contact info, I think maybe, can I just provide it to the HOA and you can distribute it? Because I'll do my immediate neighbors, but the reach went a little wider than I think I can walk the block. So if I make sure that you guys have it. Okay, great.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15909 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a special exception with the following adjustments to the application, with the maximum number of guests to be 7, quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., a maximum number of vehicles to be 5 with no on-street parking during quiet hours, and for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
It was a long application.
The,
so.
the, the computer's done well.
Technology's catching up. He's locked up.
Communicating with Ms. Lincoln, it was
We
clear
need
that
to
that was
refresh.
not typical, so.
Yeah, he seconded it.
Okay, now cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you for your time.
Item number 18 and item number 19 have been deferred, so we're going to go back to item number 5, which is case number 15913 is a request of Johnson Associates on behalf of Top Mark Homes LLC for a variance lot size, minimum lot size located at 730, generally located at 730 Northeast 38th Terrace.
Hello, Jessica Bloy with Johnson Associates representing the applicant. The application before you today is to permit a series of 25-foot wide platted lots. The plat was recorded in 1909, well before the adoption of the existing zoning code, making these legal lots at the time they were platted. As these lots are zoned R1, our client did purchase them with the intent to develop single-family homes. And at the time they applied for the building permit application, they were informed that they did not meet the minimum lot size and width requirements for R1. They did meet all other R1 requirements, including setbacks. So because these lots were platted prior to the zoning code, there is a provision in the code which allows for the existing non-conforming lot width, and that is in Chapter 59, which states that a lot that where a lot has less width than required in a zoning district and said lot was created by a plat or deed previously approved by the Planning Commission and recorded, the minimum lot width provision of the district shall not apply. So this does address the lot width, but does not address the lot size, which is why we are before you today. We do believe that this was an oversight in the code, as the intent of the previously stated section was to allow a previously approved lot width. And so the lack of language addressing a previously approved lot size has created this hardship. I would also like to address utilities. So I do know that in the staff report, it was noted that utilities are not currently existing for this property. And we spoke with staff in the utilities department. Our client has confirmed that they do intend to extend the utility lines that are in the area to serve the property. And following that confirmation, we spoke with staff again, who stated that they were okay with us moving forward as long as we were aware that utility extensions were required. And lastly, this hardship is not exclusive to the lots that are within this application. So there is no one entity that owns consecutive lots equal to or exceeding 50 feet in width. And our client's entity only owns the lots within this application. So none of which are abutting one another, as you can see. And these are the first lots that will be developed on the south side of 38th Terrace. So at the time the remaining lots are developed, they will face this same challenge with the lot size. So this may just be the first application that you are seeing for it. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anyone want to address the board on this application? No.
Anything?
I just have questions in general. I don't have any issue with the application. I am curious, and I guess I have my answer just with your presence being here, but is there not language elsewhere in the code that automatically allows legal non-conforming at the time that the code changes? I get that it doesn't expressly talk to the lot size.
No.
Okay.
Simple answer. So these were platted in
1909.
1909, which, along with a lot of other properties in the city of Oklahoma City, were platted on 25-foot lot lines. They were just
Most of the core of our city is platted on 25-foot
lot
lots.
lines. Yes. They were just built on 2 lots, which is kind of the flavor of the neighborhood, right? Is that most of these properties are on 2 lots. You said that there is no one entity that owns 2 consecutive lots along this whole block? I'm just asking.
Mark
Or
Sitzow,
just-
Johnson and Associates, 20 Sheridan
Mark.
Avenue. There are, I think, property owners that do, but staff and their staff report reference the lots that are in between us. It's a
And that's what I was wondering, if it was just this section or if it actually was all of the block.
And I just want to make one quick note. In discussing with staff before we filed the application, we met with the city attorney's office and the planning department. And ultimately what came out of this was basically 3 options that we had. One was to seek a variance. One was to rezone the property, which given we're single family and we're building single family, we didn't think that was a viable option. And the third was to seek a code amendment specifically to allow for this and amend the zoning code to add in lot size or non-conformance. And at the time when we started this, we did not have a Ward 7 city councilor. So there was no one to go to seek that, because honestly that may have been the quickest route, we don't know, but that was the direction of the city attorney's office. And if we're approached by the other entity that owns this, maybe that's a viable path forward, because you're right, the vast majority of the core is platted in 25-foot wide lots, and there's portions of it that are still have paper streets and could be developed. We meet all other conditions within the zoning code, which made this one a little bit interesting.
Right. And not that it makes a difference in planning commission, but a lot of times we put 2 properties on the one lot that is 50-foot wide and just maybe not shotgun style, but front to back. And so this isn't unprecedented. I guess 2 of the 3 things that you needed in order to build the single family homes were already in the code. Just the one lot size had to be 6,000 square feet. Is that?
Yes, because it didn't speak to lot size.
Yes, the lot size that we are proposing, I believe, is just under 3,300. And yes, R1, the minimum lot size is 6,000.
Can I ask, just out of curiosity, does your client have a floor plan for these homes?
Yeah.
I do not believe we have been provided that. What is on the screen is actually what was submitted with the building permit application. Do you have that?
There's a floor plan in the building permit application. We didn't submit that. It's I think it's 2 floors.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is I just want to make sure we don't need to vary a setback at the same time. So he's got a product that works
Correct.
with the setbacks on a 25-foot wide lot.
Yes, it's a 15-foot wide home.
Okay.
Single car garage?
Any garage at all.
Yeah, true. And not against the variety of housing within a neighborhood. I mean, it appears that there's houses on 4 lots. Nobody came in protest. No written protests.
No, I support it. I more than support it. I think it needs to be done. I don't know if there is an administrative avenue to a code amendment or if it has to be brought by a private developer, but I would like to see it cleaned up so they're not.
I would say as staff, you could participate in the code update. This is not being proposed. The code update I confirmed is not proposing a smaller lot size and 25-foot lot width.
But there could be a code update amendment to add to the language that grants an exception to the minimum lot width by also granting an exception to the minimum lot size for those lots that are platted prior to the adoption of the zoning code.
Not currently.
I mean, yes, for administration purposes, we'd have to know when and when not to abide by the 50-foot lot width requirement, because that's the cadence of a lot of neighborhoods, is 1 home for every 50 to 75 feet.
Yeah, I would just note that you wouldn't follow it when there's an adopted, approved, recorded plat. So if that exists, it's an approved lot by the city. Lot width is already taken care of in the zoning code. The addition of minimum lot size really just goes in accordance with the fact that the lot has less frontage. The 2 really go hand in hand. It's hard to imagine a 25-foot wide lot or a 30-foot wide lot that's deep enough to get to
250
6,000
feet.
square feet. And so I hope to see in the zoning code, we get a smaller minimum lot size. I know we're working toward it. Maybe that'll take care of it, but we can all dream.
Right. Or you can just do a spud or a PUD and get
Yeah, because
there.
that's
Always
what the
happy
whole
to
point
file
of the
a PUD
code
or a
update
spud.
is more spuds and
Or
plugs.
this will be one of a lot of new variance requests for this board.
Yes. Good fun. Anything else?
If we're ready for a motion, and got nobody else to speak.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve case number 15913 on the statutory requirement that it meets. On the
Basis.
No, the statutory, or the basis that it meets the statutory requirement for a variance
Second.
to the lot size.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
He broke it. It's in with the last guys. She misdid it.
Okay. That makes sense because I did see one that did have a bunch of conditions and it looked like it was written by a lawyer. Okay.
So who did the motion? Noel? Okay.
It's not working, so we can do a voice vote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a motion, Marcus seconded it.
Okay. So Voorhees,
Yay.
Noble,
Yay.
Udi?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're approved.
Thank you.
Okay, then we sent back item number 3, which
Number
was
8.
case number 15903, request of Fitzpatrick Properties for a variance to setback regulations at 1618 Northeast 16th Terrace.
I'm good with moving them to the next, May 15th, I think.
Okay.
Let's just continue both of them.
Continue to 5:15.
We have a motion to continue 2 items, May 15th.
I'll make a motion to defer case number 15903 and 15899 to May 15th.
Okay, Voorhees,
Yes.
Noble,
Yes.
Udi,
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any additional items. We don't have any board committees. Does anybody want to say anything? Rita? No. Citizens to be heard? There were 2 young ladies in here earlier. I'm sure they want to address the board.
They're already gone.
All right. Does anybody have any other business? Okay, let's call it adjourned. Thank you.